Alright, so in the previous session, basically, we discussed that we were going to build this credit card application. We, at a very high level, discussed about steps like what are the major steps which are there in the credit card application. Well, right here, I want you guys to basically focus on something which is very important in terms of BPM automation. So in BPM, in business process, we try to identify something called business flow or process. Now, if you basically whatever you are trying to automate in that, you look for all the business flows and business processes which are yielding any result. So they should have an end result. Okay. At the end of the process, there should be an end result. It should produce an result. It should have life cycle. What is life cycle? Life cycle means that it is traversing through various stages, statuses, and it is being interacted or processed by different stakeholders. So any business process which has a result, end result, which is producing a concrete result at the end of the business process execution and has a life cycle, means that it has different status or status or stages basically throughout its processing, and it might interact with one or more stakeholders as well, either just for the informational purpose, or those stakeholders are actually doing some taking some action or working on that business process in somehow. All these business processes are eligible for workflow, and they are called actually workflow. And in Pega, this is nothing but we call them case type. So we define the template, we define the business process steps, how the step by step the business process will be completed. That's the case type. Okay. And then of course we create instance of that case type. Those are individual cases. So we'll come back to that. So the in the credit card application, if we look at that, applying and getting a credit card is actually a business process. Correct? It is a business process. It has an end result. Yes, it does have an end result. At the end of it, either you get a decision that your credit card cannot be processed, it's rejected, or ultimately you finally get the credit card. So it does actually result into a concrete outcome. Okay. And it does have a life cycle. Just look at the humankind. Okay. How is our life? We actually are born, we grow young, older, and then we die. And throughout this journey, we go through different stages. We complete our studies, get into the jobs, get married, things like that. So throughout the course of our life, we are interacting with certain people. Our status is changing. Sometimes we are just in infant, then we become adult, then we become old. All those things are changing with us, right? That's exactly what should happen with the business process as well. Sometime it will be just the newly created, next time it might be just pending for some sort of approval or processing or review, and then it might be just pending for maybe the fulfillment. So it should have that kind of status. Does the credit card application has it? Yes, it does have. You will have an application submission. Maybe you'll initiate this application and you would have not submitted. At that point of time, it might be said that okay, it's a new application which is not submitted yet, or maybe pending submission. You submit it, it will be pending for the review. The reviewers will have to look at that, right? So it does have a life cycle, very well defined life cycle for sure. And then those lives interaction, if we talk about the different stakeholder who are interacting with the credit card application, so of course the customer, the applicant itself is the one number one person basically who is applying for the submission. So that's a different person, right? The review might be, there might be a team in the bank which or just an individual who will be doing the review of your application. Then there might be automated process to set up an account, or maybe a manual process, a team will set up your account into another application. And then there will be definitely another team who will be taking care of printing the card and sending that to you, the fulfillment. So there are different people, right, interacting this. So this credit card application qualifies, actually this is a workflow. This is definitely a workflow which in Pega is called case type. All right. In cases in Pega, the case types are organized into stages. Stages are the major basically state of your business process. Major state. Okay. Under the stages, we have different processes. One case type might have multiple stage. Stage might have multiple process, and under the process we have steps, and one process might have multiple steps. If you go back to this credit card, so these are stages. Application submission is first stage. Review, application review is second stage. Account setup, maybe that is just an automated process. This is another stage, right? So which actually depicts major change in the stage or in the process, major improve, major basically state of the workflow in question, and then the fulfillment, right? Then under
So
these stage, sorry, there was a question.
yeah, so can we say that application submission is a case type,
No, application case
review
type
is
is,
a case type?
no, case type is, see, just submitting an application will not yield any results. So how can that be a case type? Case types should
Okay,
have life cycle. Submitting an application doesn't have life cycle. You just submit a form. The entire credit card application is a case type. Application submission is just one stage in that case type. Review is just one stage in that case type. Account setup is just these are major stages, major group of step or group which will actually basically change the status once you complete the major change in the uh, life cycle of the workflow or business process in hand. Okay, so that's this. So
okay,
credit card application is actually a case type. Application submission is, or just submission, that's the first stage. Then review is the second stage. Then once review is I mean, see, application submission and review, there is a significant change in the status, right? Submission is with the user, they submit it, and review is progress basically. Once review is done, then setting up the account, that's also a major change in the status. So these are the basically criteria through which we define stages, group of processes, a group of steps which will eventually depict a major state change into the business process. So these are the stages. Okay, and then there are processes. Well, application submission, then will have submit application, one process. There might be multiple step in the submit application. Review, one process. There might be multiple step in the review. Account setup and fulfillment, right? So let's try doing this. I'm going to create a new case in our application. So just click on the case type and add a case type. So I can name it as credit card application or just CC application. That's the case type. That's the workflow. Okay. Remember, I told you that all the cases will go into the work pool. So this CC application will create a class under the work class. So this is the derived, directed and pattern, both are going to be same. Okay, and this is going to be, this will create a case type rule going to be stored into the CCMS rule set version 1. Don't ignore the remote case type for now. Submit it. So this will create a class and a case type and bring up the case designer through which we design the stages, steps, state, or rest of the things basically on the case. Okay, so see, a new case type has been created under the case and a case designer screen is being presented to us. Pega sets up a lot of things when you create a new case just to initialize things with you with the application. All right, so this is what you see. But before I explain the case life cycle or basically the case designer, let's go to the process. See, work class. Just hit enter to refresh it. Under the work class, we got CC application class created. This class is under the work class. This represent our case type or case, and every process and things that we will create will go under this. Under the process category, you will see a case type rule getting created by default. This is the case type rule that got created for this CC application. Okay. You don't know about these rule types and all those things. That's what we will eventually learn. Okay. When and then this whenever you click on any of that case type here, actually Pega opens it into case designer. This is how it looks like. Okay, it's not case type rule you can open from this or from that class rule. Okay, by default, but this is the case designer where we make changes to the case type rule. Pega Pega always comes with a pre-configured, I mean from 8 point Pega 8.4 onward, Pega gives you a starting stage. This one is called a stage, the grayed out. Okay, Pega gives you a create stage. You cannot delete this stage. This is supposed to initialize the case type. Whenever you create a case, basically you will have to start by filling up some detail, right? Almost always. Credit card application, you will start by filling up the applicant's detail, right? So that's the purpose. We cannot delete the primary, this is called initialization stage. We cannot delete it, but if we want to we can skip it, and I'll tell you how to skip it. You can rename it though. Okay, so I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to name it as submission or applications. I mean submission is what I'm going with. Okay, so I will not have the full submission. So application has to be submitted here. This is the second. If you want to add another stage, click on plus stage. See, and next stage is review. So review. This is the stage 2. Stage 3, account setup. And stage 4, that's the last stage, fulfillment. Remember, fulfillment is where our case will end. Okay, so we will mark on the fulfillment, we will say resolve the case. That means the case is completed. Okay, it is resolved, completed. We will come back and discuss more about the status, but this is where the resolve happen. Let's click on save. So the case type is set up with the stages. Remember, the first stage also comes with a process. So process means this one under the stage. You can add process. Basically, if you already have created process, you can add like that, or you can just click on step, add an step, basically anything, and it will automatically create a process which you can rename because steps are included in the process only. Okay, so I'm not going to add here right now anything. So I will reuse this is create process. I can rename its label. I will say application submission as a process name. And the first step that I have is, remember, this is just the process name. Under the process, you have the steps. These are the steps. So I will have submit application. That's the first step, and save it. You just mentioned the hierarchy. So under the submission, we have the first level of process called application submission. That's the process, and and only one process. And under the application submission process, we have one step called submit application. Remember, this process under the stage is technically also called flow. That is also called flow. You can open this. Click on the process name, and right hand side you will see open process. Click on that and it will open a flow type rule. Process is nothing but a flow type rule. See, this is a flow. Submit application and this gets done. Okay. So our case type, basically initial structure is ready, but how will someone submit an application? We did not basically configure any field or anything, right? You just configured submit application. That was, you just renamed basically something that came pre-configured. Well, the quickest way, I'm saying this is not the best way. There are other ways to configure it, and we will learn that. But let's see a case type running actually. Okay, so the quickest way to configure a screen for the user. So this green icon, form step is for the users. Okay, online users. So green icon is for this is called assignment actually. Okay, so we can configure a user screen on this. So click on this and click on configure view. In the configure view, so this is by default coming some field. Let's remove that. Let's say that we want to add certain field for the user. So click on add field. If you already have defined those fields, you can see that these are property, nothing else. If you already have defined, you can expand the fields and see that. Let me show you. So these are the fields already defined. Okay, there are certain view means the UI's part. Basically those are also, you might have already created some views, you can reuse that here as well. So you can just expand that and see that, or search from here too. So some views are already created as well here out of the box. Well, we are going to create our own. So I'm going to just create a sample field. Okay, I will just say first name. Enter your first name. Text type, this is fine. Maximum length and all that you can specify here. Expected length, I will leave it to default. First name and last name. That's it. Two properties only at the moment. So whatever properties you are adding, this is getting created into your case types class. Okay, so first name and last name will be created in CC application class under the work class. Okay, submitted. So Pega will automatically create a screen with these two properties, and that's what user will see when you run the run the case type. After you configure this and this, you will have to save the case type. All right, now let's look at the property that I mentioned, right? Let me refresh this again. So CC application under the data model, you see these are the two properties we created, isn't it? From the UI form. So that automatically gets created here and it is shown there. If you want to see execution of this case, you can click on the create bar, create menu on the top and new. You will see the case type name. You can also run the case from here to save and run, but that's not good option. This is the best option. Whenever you do any changes, save it and then run it from this menu. CC application. So it will initiate a new case. When you run a case type, a case gets created. Case type is just a template, how things are working. Case is actual case that follows that template and it has its own runtime data and all that related to the customer. So this is an instance basically of the class CC application. first time it's going to cast a lot of rules and all that, so it will be slow. All right, so see, these are the cases. It will show you the progress as well, where this is at the moment it's in the submission, review, account setup, fulfillment. They all will happen eventually. First name and last name basically is the are the two fields. When you enter that, right, and then you create the case. Basically, this is the initialization stage. Remember, we just renamed it. So case is created. First name it go into the review, right? After that, the next step is stage automatically it progresses that. Okay, after executing every step from the stage one, it goes to stage two, review. We don't have anything at the moment in review, so that's okay. We will configure this. Okay, so there isn't anything, but case is pending on the review at the moment. You can see application submission is done, case is currently here, and then it will continue to move one by one until it reaches to fulfillment. So that's the basic structure. That's exactly what the basic structure is. But now we need to learn what kind of data and other stuff that we are going to process. Without that, we should not configure this case any further. This basically session was just to explain you what a case type is. How do we take, basically how do we interpret a business requirement and convert that into a case type. In the next session, and how the case type is structured. That case type has multiple stages, stages has multiple processes and steps, and how do we add them on the case type. In the next session, we are going to talk about some details, right? Some details means what are the data element that we need to deal with that. How do we create the data element? And then we will continue to configure our case. So that's how we will basically progress next session onward. This session will basically conclude right here.